Yeah, exactly. Nothing in the gate bias.
Starting the second day 2-0 down was not the way that this team wanted to start the America's Cup. Given such a scoreline, there will be plenty questions about the difference in performance between the two boats. But the chatter last night was much more about the conditions rather than any big difference in boat speed. Getting back from behind was extremely difficult, especially in such light winds, where the effects of the dirty air of the leading boat extend so far back. But there did seem to be a difference when it came to tacking, where the Kiwis seemed to have the upper hand. This was something that Ben referred to after racing, and no doubt one of the items on their whiteboard last night. But I also wonder about the mainsail trim. The Kiwi trim looked pretty smooth throughout, while the British adjustment looked more twitchy. Today looks pretty light again, with a peak breeze being 9 knots and then tapering off. In other words, tricky. But for now, it's all about a big send-off, something that the British team and supporters are getting pretty good at. If we were looking for closer action in the pre-start, today we got it as the two teams locked horns. In fact, much closer than anyone was comfortable with. Port tack Ineos Britannia didn't do enough to keep clear and were dealt a penalty.
There's good pressure, right? And line squared up there, guys.
While they did well to clear it after the start, they had to give away 75 metres to the Kiwis. Going up the first beat, they bounced off each other. The Kiwis to the left, the British to the right. At the top gate, the Kiwis were 19 seconds ahead. With both boats on the same headsail, there was less of a speed difference than yesterday. In fact, by the bottom, Emirates Team New Zealand had increased their lead to 27 seconds. From there, the Kiwis played a covering game up the second beat. Meanwhile, race director Ian Murray was shortening the legs as the breeze started to decrease from the 9 knots that we'd seen at the start. The gap between the two boats may have been growing, but the race was getting harder. And as the Kiwis went round the top gate for the last time, 43 seconds ahead, time was running out for the British. And shortly later, it had. This was another flawless race by Emirates Team New Zealand from the start, especially in the pre-start, where we'd originally thought they might be weaker. Looks like they're not.
It was a little bit uncomfortable, to be honest, with how close the boats got. But interesting to see how the umpires obviously ruled we were pretty clear there, so great to get a penalty and control the race from there.
I'm sure it's a tough call. It was obviously at port starboard and felt like we were keeping clear, but obviously the umpires didn't see it that way, so, you know, that's the rub of the green.
My understanding this morning is that there'd been some changes overnight on the British boat, with a slight trade between the upwind and downwind performance. It certainly looked like the performances between each boat were more even downwind. But once again, being in dirt isn't a good way to see a boat's true performance. Ben, talk us through that start. That was a bit unexpected.
Yeah, it was a bit of a close one, and fortunately went against us. But I thought the team did a nice job to regroup and offload the penalty and keep it close. You know, when we came back together halfway up that first beat.
In the penalty situation, had you lost the rudder at that point?
No, I mean, losing the rudder is an issue in those lighter, well, in all conditions, but in certainly those lighter air conditions it can be. We had control of the boat. We were just trying to keep clear once we got dialed down, which kind of felt like we were doing, but obviously the umpires felt differently.
Pretty scary as well, really close. I mean, we heard a few comments on the boat, and quite understandable. That's the closest we've seen the boats get, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. We had a close one against Delingi in the semi-finals, but yeah, I mean, I was on the other side of the yacht at that point, but yeah, I think Dylan, Lee and the guys on the port side were a little bit surprised.
And were you able to check in? I mean, you found yourselves then having to chase the Kiwis and then in the dirty air in difficult conditions. Were you able to check in with them a bit more? Were you able to sort of gauge your relative performance? Because it looked like things have changed between you and them in terms of boat speed.
Yeah, like I said, I thought the first upwind leg we did quite a good job of keeping it close and maybe even coming into them a little bit at times. And then they did a nice job defending, and then the breeze maybe died off a little bit through the race, and it just seemed they were able to find moments to extend it a little bit as the breeze died off. So we'll have to have a good look at the data and see what we can figure out from that.
We keep hearing about momentum, we always do at this level of competition. Were you relieved that actually their momentum had been sort of stopped today with the sort of lack of a second race?
Well, we're always ready to go, but I think for us it's probably time. It's a good opportunity to have a bit of a reset and figure out how we can up our game. Clearly they're doing a great job, and we need to figure out how to counter that.
Good stuff.
Thanks.
Meanwhile, on the side of the Kiwis, Outridge and Burling had told us in the press conference that they've been watching the British moves very carefully. Judging by their pre-start today, which we also had seen them do yesterday, it certainly seems like they have been. Nathan, in the press conference you talked about having studied the British performance all through the Louis Vuitton final, and particularly in the pre-start. Is that the product today of what we saw of what you've been studying and how you decided you were going to attack them?
Yeah, a little bit. I think everyone studies each other pretty hard, but we've had a good look at how they've been preparing and how they sort of set themselves up, and today was just a simple example of taking an opportunity when it presented itself and converting it into a start win. So I don't know if we'll see that scenario play out again, but there'll be plenty more to come, and we'll be ready for those.
There seemed to be a sort of change in relative performance between the two boats. Not sure who changed what, but seemed to be. Is that how you saw it today?
Since yesterday, yes and no. Like, the conditions were pretty similar today. I think both teams would have gone home last night and analysed their performance and how they sailed the boat, and we feel like we probably put a bit of better performance on the table today with how we sailed the boat. But yeah, we'll have another look tonight and see if that actually was a difference or not. I haven't had a chance to review any of the racing yet, but obviously we're pretty comfortable with how our boat was going around the course today, and a bit disappointing we didn't get another race in, but breeze looks good for tomorrow.
There was also a comment from the Kiwi chase boat that seemed to indicate how punchy they feel. Coach Ray Davies said, "It's great to see a bit of match racing creeping in there. The guys JJ and Sam have been on this one for quite a while and have been practicing this a lot, and Ben's been asking for someone to do it for quite some time. So it was good that it was us that gave him one of those." Was that the Kiwis turning the screws? And one thing that could be of note, look at this for a turning circle on the Kiwi boat just before the incident. Impressive. I wonder if that has anything to do with the rudder that we were looking at earlier this week. So after the first race, the breeze was forecast to drop, and there was an expectation that the second race might not happen. But as the teams were changing sails and getting ready for an even trickier race, the pressure was piling onto the British. 3 races down, the next would mark the halfway point, and if the Kiwis won this one, the momentum would have swung their way. But at 3:30 this afternoon, that opportunity slipped away, as the race committee called off racing for the rest of the day. So as the scoreline sits at 3-0, you can really feel the tension starting to build down here. I know we've been talking about pressure for 2 months, but now it's unmistakable. So with the second race cancelled for today, tomorrow's reserve day is now in use. See you then.